Welcome to Chats with Changemakers, the Northeast podcast for people who want to make the world a better place. Hello and welcome to Chats with Changemakers. I'm your host, Kate Duffy. This series is sponsored by the Level 2 in Starting and Developing a Social Enterprise, a practical course for changemakers ready to start strong or go back to basics and build better foundations. Check out the links to find a course near you. In this episode, I'm joined by Ross Heatley, founder of Project Fluency, which is a digital platform designed to help neurodivergent people better understand themselves, communicate their needs, and navigate the world without losing who they are. Let's hear from Ross. Hello, Ross. Lovely to talk to you.
Good morning. Lovely to meet you as well, Kate. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, no worries. So, Ross, I'm really looking forward to hearing all about the amazing work that you do. But as is tradition with our podcast, we're going to start with you. So tell us a little bit about you. What made you want to make a difference in the world?
So I come from a HR background originally, and I actually noticed a lot of sort of people who were struggling with neurodivergence as part of that. People who were wanting accommodations, or people who just didn't quite realize why things weren't working for them in the way that they should, you know? And that resonated with me quite a lot. Growing up, I was always really sort of academic, always really intelligent. I was part of the gifted and talented program growing up, so I was labeled as a prodigy, growing up. But when it came to doing exams for my GCSEs, I just couldn't revise at all, and I really struggled with that, to be honest. And that kind of created that mentality in my mind of I'm clearly intelligent. I can clearly do things, so why can't I do this? And there was that kind of dissonance almost between reality and my sort of potential, if you will. And I saw that playing out, as I say, with a lot of people through my HR work, and me, being naive, not sort of being anywhere kind of in that position of I might be neurodivergent at the time as well. It was very much like, well, you're on one side of the fence and these are on the other side, until, I started going to therapy and started kind of unpacking a lot of my own personal issues. And then everything unraveled. And then it got to the point for me where I had to take a step away from HR because it just got too much. And, I really kind of, one of the sort of the things that stuck out for me the most in that time, we would ask people what support they needed and they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know how to verbalize it, or they wouldn't know how to talk about it. And then all of a sudden, that's me. That's my problem. So I was fortunate in that time that I'd taken a step back from HR, that I was able to kind of, really kind of take that time off and sort of, I didn't have to immediately jump back into another job or anything like that. So that's kind of where the idea for Project Fluency was born, essentially. It's less about wanting to change people and more about kind of wanting to help people understand that the systems that they are in don't necessarily support them in the way that they need it. And they don't maybe have the language to be able to kind of do that. So that's where Project Fluency came from. It was to help people kind of become fluent in self-advocacy, essentially. And it has evolved and it's kind of changed since then as well. It's become kind of, a replacement for masking. It's become a way to sort of see yourself very clearly and how to kind of go from there. So yeah, it's evolving as I am, and yeah, nice. It's been a great part of the journey. It's really kind of felt like me and the work are one here almost. It's become synonymous with who I am almost. So yeah.
Oh, amazing. Okie dokie, Ross. So tell us a little bit more then about your organization. Like you've kind of seamlessly moved from one to the other there, but so how do you actually tackle this issue then? Because I completely understand that feeling of, I know something isn't right, but I don't know how to articulate what I need in order to get unstuck. So
Yes.
how do you do that?
So I'll not go through the and bore you with the actual kind of product details, because there is quite a lot
Hmm.
in terms of kind of how it's sort of structured and whatnot. But essentially, what I've tried to build with this application is a practice space, somewhere that you can be authentic, but you can learn to um, adapt across the different contexts of your life. Essentially,
Okay.
so we call this an adaptive personal environment.
Hmm.
And it's something that changes kind of shape based on where you are in the day, as opposed to you having to bend to the app itself. And I think that was one of the common occurrences that I would see with spaces like this. It very much assumes that, you wake up on a day and you have your maximum amount of energy available to you. You are going to be consistent every single day, and you're going to meet all these goals, and nothing's going to be an issue. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of shame associated with that as well. And you know, that was something that I wanted to avoid with this
Hmm.
app. Um, I think with things like SaaS products, software as a service products, there is very much the metric here is engagement. The metric is retention,
Hmm.
all of these things. And I decided that I want someone who joins this app, gains enough knowledge from it, and decides, I'm done with this. I don't need this
Hmm.
anymore. That is success as far as I'm concerned. That is a positive impact made because this person has benefited from what we've given them, and they've internalized it and they've moved on. So all the systems are designed for that. It's almost
Hmm.
like it's an ephemeral system, as opposed to something that keeps you locked in there forever. And I think that mentality is something that I'm really hoping will build a bit of trust with people. I'm trying to do things differently in that regard, and I guess that is kind of part of the process of being a change maker, really, isn't it? We're
Hmm.
trying not just to change, as I say, the people. It's change the systems in which they interact, and kind
Yeah,
of go from there. So
definitely.
yeah, I think if I had to kind of distill it down, I would say we want orientation, not evaluation. We
Okay.
want people to be able to find themselves where they are, as opposed to being told you are doing well, you are doing bad, etc.,
Hmm.
etc. Because that just builds shame in
Hmm.
people. Current habit trackers, as I say, things like that are very much just like, you're not doing right, or you get hounded by these things, and yeah, that, it just that's what I noticed. I felt, with myself, that I would use Duolingo, for example. I was learning Italian for a year, and I
Hmm.
can barely remember any of it.
With that angry little
Um,
owl.
yeah. It's ridiculous, but for me, like, I got into the habit of doing it regularly, and it just kind of it stuck. And I would, there was almost that kind of impending sense of, oh, I need to do it today,
Hmm.
and there was that kind of shame loop of, I need to get in it and blah blah blah, and that hooked me in, and it worked, but I didn't like it.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people are starting to kind of catch on to that, to the point where they're saying, actually, I don't really enjoy how this makes me feel.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a big part of how we do this. Um, but yeah, it almost feels like like a dirty word to say, but there is an AI component in the app. Um, I know, but we have built this with stringent guardrails.
Mhm.
Um, you know, as I say, the philosophy that we have kind of instilled within this app is designed not to diagnose,
Mhm.
not to kind of misread people, or misguide people or anything like that. It is there to enable them to reflect. And, one of the very early tenets that I wanted to instill here was that I don't want the AI to do things for you. I
Mhm.
want it to guide you, and you do it yourself, reinforcing that kind of ethos of, people will come into the app, hopefully, and leave with knowledge, as
Mhm.
opposed to leave feeling drained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sweet.
So, talk me through who your ideal customer is for this then. Like, is it young people? Is it old people? Is it people in the Northeast? People all over the world?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a hard one really, because I've kind of built a system, and this is the trap that you need to avoid really with any business, where you can say, oh, anybody could use it, but
Mhm,
in reality, anybody could use this, which is
mhm,
annoying to say. It has been built with neurodivergent minds in mind, I guess.
mhm,
Um, I wouldn't say, we're not currently opening this up to children, although someone who in my team is potentially exploring what that might look like,
mhm.
um, to have something like this for kids. But this was kind of built with the neurodivergent adult in mind.
Okay.
Someone who maybe is burnt out, someone who is masking to get through to the end of the week, and collapsing on Friday night and wondering why they've got no energy
Mhm,
left. Um, you know, I did have a conversation with an older gentleman once. I say older, 60 plus, and he was like, "Oh, I can use this." So that was a big sort of relief to me, to be honest. But
mhm.
I've also had people who self-identify as neurotypical say, "Do I have to be neurodivergent to use this? Because I would really enjoy this." And it's like,
Yeah.
well, no, of course you don't. But it's very much like a lot of disability accommodations. Once they're put in place for people who need them, you tend to find that other people will benefit from this as
Yeah, for
well.
sure, for sure.
Yeah.
We've certainly found that with our programs that the more inclusive you make them, the better that is for everybody.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's interesting you're saying that your audience is already potentially growing there. So fast track into the graduation then for participants. What does success look like for somebody that's been using your app? What happens that they decide, "Oh, I don't need this anymore?"
So I think, and this kind of took me a while, because for a long time, the app was intelligent features
Mhm,
that didn't really kind of communicate with each other. And it's only really been until recently that I developed something that I was originally calling it an interface, and it was designed to be kind of a replacement for masking, as I kind of alluded to earlier, where something that we have in the system called the Living Energies, and it's basically a sort of a behavioral identification system. So it's reminiscent of things like MBTI,
mhm,
um, or insights that you might have came across in business, or it's even got a sprinkle of astrology in there as well, to be honest.
mhm.
Um, but it's all based on verifiable behaviors that people exhibit in real life. Um, and we use this not as a you are this thing, but it's more of a you have this amount of this that you've displayed, essentially. And there's 12 of these energies, and people will have all of them, but to different degrees. And
Yeah,
we kind of use that to
preferences.
sort of, yes, we use that to power the app, but it's so things like, so my top energy, when I do my assessment, is the advocate, funnily enough.
Nice.
Um, Someone who stands up and speaks for these things, and um, talks about things that matter, and he doesn't let things go. But that can show up in different contexts in different ways. In work, for example, the advocate energy is great, because when things aren't going right, there's someone who stands up and says what needs to be said.
Mhm.
But in you know friendships scenarios, for example, that could be quite difficult when you're
Mhm.
feeling you're constantly being challenged. So the interface idea was, okay, we've got these living energies that kind of power the app, essentially. The kind of that is your central understanding of yourself. The interface was, well, can we almost have it like a dial, where in different contexts you maybe tone down your advocate energy, or in different contexts you tone it up, for example.
Mhm.
And then I was kind of envisioning this kind of like radio dial system, like on a submarine or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But what we kind of actually what we landed on was an equalizer
Yeah.
instead.
Mhm.
And that feels a bit more elegant.
Mhm.
So for me, the equalizer is, you're tuning yourself as opposed to remaining rigid and kind of going from there. So for me, someone who, potentially steps into the app, uses the equalizer to kind of adjust themselves in different circumstances, to kind of, they start to use the system to convert thoughts into language or into next steps. Eventually, they will get to a point where they don't need the app to do that. it just
Mhm.
becomes an internalized process where they think, actually, I recognize how I see myself in these situations and in these contexts, and I don't feel like I need to rely on this external container anymore to be
Mhm.
able to do that. It's an internalized habit and it's an internalized thing that I've learned essentially. And that for me is the ultimate success. Like that for me is something where people will say, I've benefited from this and I now no longer feel like I need to rely on this. Um,
Amazing.
I've graduated, if you
Mhm.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so tell us then about the business model, because yeah, like you've said, from a sort of a data, IT, AI kind of business structure, that the model for those are often that they're hooks, aren't they? And it's about keeping people there. So, what's the business model here? How are you going to be financially sustainable?
Well, I mean, it remains to be seen yet, doesn't it?
Okay.
But I think so what we've tried to do, and what this is kind of part of the doctrine again, really here is that we don't paywall transparency. Um, so for me, I've tried to I've tried to avoid having tons and tons of different paid tiers and whatnot, but I have a free tier
Mhm.
which does kind of limit the amount of messages that you can spend per day, but the features of the app are still available essentially. And then we have two um, paid tiers. We have a sort of a casual and a power tier. Casual is your obviously your casual use. I'm not going to be hammering this all the time, etc.,
Mhm.
etc. But I do still want to get the extra depth that's available, and that is £6
Mhm.
per month. And then we have the power tier, which is I'm going to be using this a bit more regularly. I'm going to be kind of reflecting a lot more, using the AI a lot more, etc., etc. Because of the way that we've built the AI, the structures in it, there is a higher cost for the tokens that we use because it's not just a standard ChatGPT thing that you're putting out. There are specific guardrails and tones
Mhm.
and things like that we put in place, so they do cost more. So there was a concern there, so we have that higher power tier. But I've also been working to develop something called a creator tier. And there is something that we've built in with the AIs. It's something that I call hats. So they are kind of like um, prompt injections, I guess, that you would so, or like they're a bit more powered. We've got systems in place where you can put APIs on. So I built an astrology one where you could use an API that pulls astrology data, and the hat
What do
itself.
you mean by API?
So it's a. Do you know, it's funny enough. I actually looked at what it stands for yesterday, and it doesn't make any sense. So basically, it's like an instruction that kind of calls to another place,
Okay.
and it pulls data from another place. So like for this astrology one, for example, I haven't built what's called an ephemeris into the data, so it's not native, but it calls to another website, another location that has that
Mhm.
data, and then kind of brings it back, and then it knows what to do with it as a result of that.
Okay.
So it's how two systems kind of communicate with each other that way. Similarly with the AI that I've built, it's not within the app itself. It calls to another AI from another service essentially. So
Interesting.
um, yes, so that's kind of how that works in a tech sort of sense. Where was I going with this? So the hat system, yes, sorry,
Yeah.
ADHD. The hat system, what we're trying to do with that is kind of build almost like a marketplace where people could create their own hats and then sell those. And the money would go directly to the creator, but the creator tier has a higher monthly cost.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
the intention, the hopeful intention, and fingers crossed it does pan out this way, is that because there is a higher cost monthly for those, that will subsidize the free tiers as a
Perfect.
result.
Yeah.
So that is kind of my this is the B2C business model.
Mhm.
I'm hoping that we can go into B2B, and I would love this to be something from my HR days, where someone comes forward to me and we can say, oh yes, we've got this as part
Mhm.
of your benefits package. You can use this account or blah blah blah, and then people go from there. So that's kind of where I would love to get to. But because we're still quite early in the stage of, we're developing the app and we're looking to get things piloted and tested. But we want to make sure that it works and that it actually helps people first before we kind of go full speed to head into that. So, yeah, there has been some thought. It is very hopeful, and it's very kind of change maker-esque, if you will, in that regard, that we're trying to kind of, take from the rich to feed to the poor kind of thing almost.
Got to disrupt the systems, haven't we?
Yeah, 100%. So yes, that is kind of the intention, but we'll see if it pans out. I might sell out yet. We'll see.
We'll have to come back and check.
Mm.
So Ross, you've said that you're fairly early on your sort of journey with this, but it sounds like there's been a lot of research, a lot of testing and developing. Have there been any lessons along the way that you would share with other people that are wanting to start their own changemaker journey?
So yeah, I think I kind of alluded to it earlier, really, but having your kind of philosophy before you decide to start anything, I think this is especially relevant for people who are building applications or sort of SaaS products or anything like that. I think if you're doing a service, you're pretty kind of set on what it is that you're doing in that regard. But making sure that it's like having your values in place. These things are so important to have first. We wrote our doctrine essentially, and then everything that we did was checked against that. Does this feature map with what we're trying to do, or is this just? And if it's not, then we'll scrap it. If it works, great. Then let's develop that. It does slow down the process, but that's intentional, because the slow start will mean a graceful finish, as opposed to let's speed ahead and then actually, oh no, we need to wrap back around and kind of, we need to review that, we need to do this, we need to do that, blah, blah, blah. Being clear on what you actually want and what your values are and how you want to proceed first is so important. And yeah, I think one bit of advice really that really kind of stuck out from one of my early days in therapy, if something doesn't exist, build it.
Nice.
Yeah, that was kind of the whole point of doing this, really. This was something that I wish I'd always had. So even if it doesn't help anybody else, it's helped me, and that is still a benefit as far as I'm concerned.
Fab.
You've never failed then if you've helped yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I'm definitely going to be checking it out. So, which brings us on to our last segment. So, how can we support you on your mission here to disrupt the sector, to support people to be their best selves? So, what can we do to support you on your way?
Whoa. I think for me, yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm conscious of kind of staying too static. So, I'm always looking for people to try and contribute. I would love people who are curious about anything that I've talked about. I think for me, as much as there are a lot of, I know, quote unquote innovations in this app, the one thing I'm probably the most proud of is the Living Energies, and I've had feedback that people really see themselves in this. And even if the app itself doesn't go anywhere, I do think the Living Energies is something that will live on. So I think curiosity, just conversation. I'd love to be challenged on these things. I'd love to be sort of like, where does this land? Where does it not land? And yeah, is there something that maybe I'm missing here? Is there something that we can account for that would sort of really kind of enrich the experience of people? Because ultimately, this is an application that's designed to help. So if it doesn't do that, then it hasn't worked or hasn't met its achievements. So yeah, I guess just anyone who maybe, if anything that I've said today resonates with anyone, please feel free to reach out, to engage. And yeah, I'd love to build this with people, for people, essentially.
Nice. Perfect. I think on that note, Ross, that's brilliant. We'll be sharing all of your links with everybody so that they can get in touch directly with you. And hopefully there'll be some new connections on that way. But for now, thank you ever so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me today, Kate. Really appreciate it.
What I really loved about this conversation with Ross was the reminder that change making doesn't have to always start with having the answers or a brilliant, amazing, different thing to do. Sometimes it starts with recognizing a challenge in your own life and deciding to build the thing that you wish had existed for you. There were some brilliant transferable lessons throughout the episode, so I'm going to run through those now. Firstly, the importance of understanding your values and philosophy before building anything. So, Ross spoke about a really clear doctrine for Project Fluency and checking every feature against it. So, a really powerful reminder that purpose led organizations need really strong foundations in order to root integrity, not just good ideas. It would have been so easy for this as a tech related company to go for the easiest route, which perhaps would have taken them away from those core values. So I love the fact that he's taken the time to actually write it down and it be a document that they are constantly referring back to. It's not just a pretty picture on the wall of these are our values, but it's something that's actually acting as a compass to help steer them in the right direction for ultimately the aim of the organization. Secondly, we explored the idea of inclusive design benefiting everyone. So, although the platform was created with neurodivergent people in mind, many of the approaches that Ross has described, so flexibility, reflection, reduced shame, adapting systems around people rather than forcing people to adapt to systems, are lessons that we can learn from. Inclusivity isn't just a dusty HR policy, it's a way of working which can benefit us all. So I love the fact that whilst this app has been designed for a very specific target audience, in order to be inclusive, accessible, actually that design has made it better for everybody. So definitely a lesson for us all on that one. And then finally, I think there was a really important challenge in here for us around technology um, and intervention design and impact. So, in a world where so many platforms are designed to keep us engaged for as long as possible, Ross is intentionally trying to create something that people can graduate from and grow beyond. So, the idea of this is that success is empowerment rather than dependency. And I think as change makers, that's something that we are aiming for. We're looking for transformation, which ultimately should potentially put us out of a job in the future. But what a wonderful future that would be if what we're currently building isn't needed anymore. So I love the fact that that is how he is designing his business model to make sure that people aren't just, it isn't just another app for people to get hooked on, but rather it being something that's going to transform people and that they no longer need that in the future. So please do connect with Ross and check out the links for Project Fluency. Don't forget to subscribe and like all of our videos. It really helps to boost the reach of these amazing change makers. You can also join the free Northeast Changemakers community in the links below to connect with more brilliant people just like Ross. Catch you next time. If you've been inspired by what you've heard today, come and join our free Northeast Changemakers community to meet like-minded people and start your journey to changing the world.